Good day to you. This is Galactic on the 10th day of August 2025 from Chico, California. Over here you'll see the result of a general search on the geometry of the black hole. The first thing I'd like you to notice, although I know this is a little small for you to see, don't worry, you can see enough to notice that none of the diagrams really match. This is reflective of the fact that nobody knows anything about the supermassive black hole, except there is apparently some kind of thing. So what we want to do is to catch up with the cutting edge of science. In order to do science at this level, the cutting edge, you have to catch up. Well, that would take you about 16 to 24 years to catch up with the mathematics. So it's a good thing you're tuned into this station, because I've already done that for you. You don't need to waste your time. It is a waste of time. Mathematics can't solve a problem like this. However, to be perfectly fair, we don't have much to go on except mathematics. And I would have to add, because science has forgotten about geometry. It's hard to pinpoint the date at which geometry just completely dropped off the map, but science was entirely based on geometry until about 1 century to a century and a half ago, in the rise of industrial mathematics, which is a driving force behind technology. The governments glommed onto it. They have no need of geometry. So, the study of the supermassive black hole is a study in mathematics because that's all that's left. However, I know geometry. And since I've caught up with their mathematics, I know exactly where they're right and where they're wrong. I will show you the geometry of the supermassive black hole, and nobody else knows this, but you may not believe that. Let's get to the proofs. First of all, let's catch up. This will take about 5 minutes. There's no need to go to the university for 16 to 24 years and spend $200,000 to $500,000 or more. You can always spend more. So here we have perhaps the simplest, a physics stack exchange. Let's just, I'm going to double click on that, or sorry, single click. And now I think you can see more towards my face over here. The sun makes a slight dent in space-time. A neutron star makes quite a more vertical hole in space-time, but the black hole makes a much deeper hole. So that's one view. Let's look at another view. Here is black hole geometry from a university in Canada, where you see the event horizon is on top with that red circle. You may not be able to fully see that. Let's make sure if we can get that. I hope you can see the red circle showing the event horizon, and then it descends down that funnel to a singularity, which is a mathematical term. That's a mathematical term. All right. Here we're back to where we can go on. So we've seen 2 of the diagrams. That's pretty indicative, but I would like you to see just a little bit more so we can catch up with the confusion. So you'll see how confused they are. And this is to be expected since they don't know what geometry is anymore. And that's the only way. Oh dear, let's see. Make sure we can get this. Can we open that image? Open image. I hope we can. There we go. Okay, I think you can see that a little better. That shows the geometry of space-time in the region of a black hole. You can see that it makes no sense. Now, mathematically, it probably does. We're not interested in the mathematics because that's what led to the singularity and the event horizon, both of which are complete illusions, as I'll be showing you. Now, this is from ResearchGate, so I have to be cautious here because ResearchGate is very finicky about who visits it. It never used to be like that, but it is now. See if we can get a look at. Oh, no, it doesn't like me. Gee whiz. Oh, dear. I'm sorry about that. It used to know who I was, but now it has to check to see if I'm human, and then the browser goes into an infinite loop. But I think you can see that it looks like a funnel. And that shows the infinite descent of something that falls into a supermassive black hole. Also ridiculous because it's a version of infinity. Now I'm just going to scroll up through some more of these images so you can see all the fun stuff. Oh, this is the one. Now you know this if you've seen Interstellar. Holy crap, this is the best one of all. This is an actual image of that which cannot be seen. But you can see it's an animated GIF. Perhaps you can't see that. Let me see if I can get this. Open an image in a new tab so you can see. Okay, I hope you can see that because this is so exciting. This is what Horseface, I don't know the name of the actor because he's a bad actor, but he flew out. Believe this. He flew out to a supermassive black hole and got a good look at it without falling in or without dying from the massive X-rays because it's in the future. But that is, I've seen this image thousands of times. Little exaggeration, hundreds. But you can see that it's meant to boggle your mind. Because what is that doing? Well, there you are. Now we've caught up with science. They have no idea what they're looking at. None whatsoever. Alrighty then. So now we're ready to go on to explore what actually is that thing. Just a brief history of how it was discovered. It's a dark object that was discovered as a companion star in a double star system called Cygnus X. So this would be called Cygnus X1, which is the dark one. It cannot be seen, but we can see that it's a binary star system. Normally in a binary star system, you can see both stars, such as Sirius A and Sirius B. If I'm not mistaken, that's actually a trinity. There's also a Sirius C. But in this case, it was just two stars, but alas, one of them was black. In other words, no light. And that did not make sense. It did not make sense that one of the objects was dark. And by examining the orbital profile of the two objects, called a two-body system, this can actually be computed. It was determined that the mass of the invisible star was so great that the mathematicians were called in, who very grudgingly said, according to our mathematics, it is super dense. But nobody knew what that meant. But then in the study of galaxies, galaxy nuclei, the centers of galaxies near us, including our own, we've also examined the center of our own galaxy, it was determined quickly that most, if not all, galaxies do have a supermassive center. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean there's mass there? According to the mathematicians, obviously, duh! No, it's not necessarily mass. No, not at all. But nobody can guess what else it could be. Well, you don't want to guess, but they are guessing, because they only know of gravity. They don't know about electromagnetism. The men who work on the gravitational profiles of supermassive black holes are not the same men who study electrodynamics. It's very difficult to master both of those, and so nobody does. Very few men. But then, if you just happen to be a really curious astronomer and student of these things, such as myself, you may use your geometrical insight to interpret this shot of what ordinarily would be a supermassive black hole. You can see that it's anything but that. So why would I say that this should be a supermassive black hole? It's because it's at the center of a galaxy. This is a kiloparsec long scale where you see two linear jets, which is kind of redundant. They're jets. And that means it's an electroforce phenomenon. So electricity is the source of these two jets, because that's the only known linear phenomenon in the universe. That electricity is the only phenomenon that exhibits linearity. And it can do so because it's conjugal with a toroidal shape called magnetoforce. And that's called electrodynamics. You can see both forces here, although you have to interpret one of them. The electroforce is what's generating the two linear jets. That is the only explanation for that. This is a non-gravitational phenomenon. Now what's happening is a supermassive black hole has just exploded, and it was rotating. We know that it was rotating, or at least I know that it was rotating, because the plumes are rotating. And that's known. You can accept that. You can look this up if you want. If you need a link, I'll give you the link. Just leave a comment. But I'm telling you what this says. That's a quasar at the middle. A quasar and a supermassive black hole are exactly the same thing, with the obvious difference that they're exactly opposite. One is said to swallow light. That's a mistake. That's actually anti-physical. Nothing swallows light. Nothing does. Nothing swallows light. What they mean when they say that propagandistic piece of bullshit is that light cannot escape. That's ridiculous. Of course it can escape. Light can escape from anything. There's nothing in the universe that can hold on to light, except mathematics. And, of course, that means your mathematics is wrong. You can't blame the universe for the mistakes in your mathematics. Just because your mathematics says that your zero is an infinity, and therefore the center of that thing must be an inverted infinity, that just means that you're psychotic. But you see, they worship their number system. So I'm a heretic. Well, that's how science progresses. Galileo was a heretic. He almost paid with his fucking life. So now you know what a supermassive black hole is. It is an exploding object. Except we know that there are phases to a supermassive black hole. What you just saw was a quasar, which is a supermassive black hole that just exploded. Just exploded a second ago in cosmic time. But what happens when it's done exploding? You get a spiral galaxy. Or an elliptical galaxy if the supermassive black hole was not rotating when it exploded. If it wasn't rotating when it exploded, it just goes pop. And I'll bet you can guess what that makes. Any astronomer knows what that would make. It would make the other kind of galaxy. There are only two kinds of galaxies. There's a footnote to that having to do with dwarf galaxies, which my teacher's Vicky studied, and nobody's studied since because nobody cares. But there are only two galaxies on Hubble's tuning fork, which has stood the test of time. This discovery is attributed to Hubble, who said that there's a spiral galaxy. We all know about spiral galaxies. Not as many people know that most galaxies, actually 55% of all galaxies, are elliptical, which means spherical, which means when the supermassive black hole exploded, it just popped. It went pop and made an elliptical galaxy, so-called. Should be called spherical, but scientists never name things very well, very rarely. But a spiral galaxy is being shown there. That is a spiral galaxy being born from an exploding supermassive black hole that was spinning. All right, so what was it before it exploded? It was a massive object. Where it came from, I know, but I'm not going to tell you now because that would be going too far. But what happens afterward? When that is done exploding, the quasar will go out. It will become non-luminous because everything will be gone from it. But what it leaves behind is a hole in space, not a hole in time. Time is non-physical. Time is a derivative quantity. And there's no such thing as space-time. There is such a thing as space energy. And what's left over after that enormously bright object, the brightest thing in the universe is a quasar. It's the same size as the center of a galaxy. When it's done shooting out those plumes, what will remain is a spiral galaxy. And the quasar will go out because it's done exploding. Now, whether there's a remnant of matter left is not certain, but I will predict, as part of my theory, much better than any theory so far, I predict that there's actually no matter left. But what's left is it's actually a hole in space, which acts as a seeming gravitational center, but what it really is an antiprotonic center. That might be better stated. I'm still working out that theory, but the supermassive black hole has 3 phases. Before it explodes, when it explodes, in which case it becomes a quasar, and that is to produce a galaxy. That's how galaxies are born. It's not by accretion. That's the most important fact, that your astrophysicists are lying. Very important to understand that your astrophysicists, who use mathematics to determine what is an SMBH, are lying because they're too stupid to realize that their mathematical system is tricking them. Thank you for tuning in. I did promise to give that information. I hope I didn't do too much or too little. But if you want to hear more, leave a comment. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to religion and teach you the ancient wisdom that's far more important for you to know, but you may be a juvenile. I cater to you because I am a juvenile too at heart. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be right back with some religion, way more important than that goddamn hole. Thank you.